Hello, my fellow students. Good day. I'm Idris coming up with another lecture titled Basic Grammar. If you can recall, we have taken the first lecture titled Vocabulary Development, where we have taken items like denotation and connotation, register and jargon, phrasal verbs, and idioms. Today's lecture is a step forward on the lecture we have taken before, and is going to treat word classes, sentence types, tenses in English, and punctuation marks. Due to the nature of the items we'll be treating in this lecture, therefore we have split the class or the lecture into two. Today's lecture is going to treat word classes and sentence types. Therefore, it's been tagged Module 2, Lecture 1. We have another lecture coming up tagged Module 2, Lecture 2, which is going to treat tenses in English and punctuation marks. I do hope you pay much attention to the items we'll be taking in this lecture and forward your questions and observation after the lecture. Thank you. Before we move on to the concept of tense, which is the first item to be discussed in this lecture, I think it is very important for us to identify and discuss the four or rather five forms of verbs in English. Verbs are said to have five forms, which form their principal parts. The first form is called to or bare infinitive. To infinitive or bare infinitive. This is a dictionary form of verb without any inflection. As we can see on the screen, we have examples. To arrive, to do, these are to infinitive. Or arrive, call, close, these are called bare infinitive without to. These are dictionary forms of verbs, and these are called the first form of the verb. They are called to infinitive or bare infinitive. The second one is called S form. S form. We all know that when we are using, or rather when we have sentences that involves using third person singular, we mostly inflect our verbs with S. As we can see on the screen, the same verbs we use into infinitive are being used as S forms. That is example of S forms. Arrives when the person, or rather when the subject is our third person singular. Does, calls, clothes. This is called S form, depending on the number of subjects. Then the third form, which is number 3, right, is called present participle. We mostly understand present participle using ing. Take our popular example on the screen. Arriving, doing, calling, closing. This is our third form. Then the fourth form, that is number 4, is called past tense. It's been tagged as ed1. ed1. We have it on the popular example, arrived. That is having ed being inflected. Then we have the irregular form, did, which is not taking ed, but this is the past tense of the word doing, does, and to do. Then we have called. Then lastly, we have closed. These are our popular examples. Then the fifth one is called past participle, which is in bracket ed2. We have examples like arrived. This is called a regular verb because it takes ed in past tense and ed in past participle form. But for done is called irregular because we have it as did in past tense, and in past participle is called done. And the other two left, called and closed, are all regular verbs that is taking ed to form their past tense and past participles. These verb forms are essential in our subsequent discussion of the concept of tense in English grammar. And now to the concept of tense. It's my hope that you were introduced to the concept of tense right from your secondary school days. It's my hope you were taught that tense reflects the universal concept of time. Tense in English grammar is simply a term that indicates time of an action or event. So we can call it broadly as an interweb between the concept of time and the form of verb. To reflect the universal division of time, tense in English is also divided into three. We have what is called present tense, past tense, and future tense. These are the three main divisions of tense in English grammar. Present tense generally deals with actions that are either existing or being considered now. The tense has an idea of indicating currency, that is, indicating what is currently going on. It's also divided into four. The first one in the division of present tense is called present simple tense or simple present tense. This is used in various situations and it is formed using the base form or to infinitive or bare infinitive form. Base form is simply to infinitive or bare infinitive form. It's used to express certain actions. Number one, as you can see on the screen, to express present action with examples like Adamu likes rice. Adamu likes rice. Why likes? Remember, when you have third person singular, it should be the S form, not the base form. You enjoy the lecture. You enjoy the lecture. So why do we have enjoy instead of enjoys? Because the subject is third or second person plural. Second person plural. Therefore, it should be the best form. That is bare infinitive. Then the third example, Musa attends the class because it's third person singular. The second one, to express a repeated or habitual action. Simple present tense is used to express habitual action, as in, we go to mosque every Friday. I take tea every morning. Then the third function is to express a general action that is true, was true, and is likely to be true in the future, such as scientific principles. For instance, the sun sets in the west. This is true. We all know this. Mosquitoes transmit malaria. Can we say that? Mosquitoes transmit malaria. This is true. And because the subject is third person plural, we shall use the base form of the verb. The earth is spherical. The earth is spherical. We all know this to be true. The second type of present tense is called present continuous tense. This is used to express an action which is in progress at the time of speaking. It's simply formed using these forms of verb am, is, are, depending on the subject, plus the ing form. Remember, we have taken present participle form before, that is ing form of the verb. Examples: I am lecturing now. Or am I lecturing now? In a statement and question forms. The second example, you are listening. Are you not listening? Or are you listening? Still the same forms. She is jumping. Is she jumping? So these are the present continuous examples. Examples of present continuous tense. The third type of present tense is called present perfect tense. This is the third type. This is used to describe an action which is completed in the past but has continuous effect till the present. It is formed, or the tense is being formed using has and have, depending on the number of subjects, as we have been emphasizing, plus the first participle form of verb. First participle. Remember what is first participle, as we have taken in the past? Is ed2. ed2. First participle. Present perfect tense is used in two situations, as we can see. The first one is to express an action just completed. Examples: they have arrived. They have arrived. Remember, you have or has, depending on the number of subject, and past participle form. So in this example, you have because the subject is plural, and you have because the tense is present. Then arrived. Arrived. You have arrived with ed because the verb arrive is a regular verb. Then the second example, he has finished the work. He has finished the work. Can you see the difference between the second one and the first one? Have in the first one and the has in the second one, because the subjects vary. Then finished the work. They have eaten the food. They have eaten the food. Very good. They is a plural subject. That's why we have. Then eaten, unlike finished and arrived. Eaten because the verb is irregular. Then the second function of present perfect tense is to express an action that is completed in the past, whose effect continues up to the present. For example, I have known Shehu for 10 years, meaning I still know him, but I have known him for 10 years. I believe you will understand the reason why the use of have in the example. Then the second one, the students have sat down. The students have sat down. Students, that's why we have sat, because the verb is irregular. And now to the last, or the fourth and the last type of present tense, which is called present perfect continuous tense. This tense, as we can see on the screen, is used to show an action which started in the past but continues up to the present time. It is formed using has been, have been, depending on the number of subject, plus a verb taking ing form, as we can see on the screen. For instance, we have been receiving lectures for the first 2 weeks. This clearly indicates that the action was started in the past and is still in the process after the time of speaking. She has been reading her book. Why the difference between have and has? I believe you can explain this. The only difference is because of the number of subjects involved in the two sentences. And lastly, it has been raining heavily. It has been raining heavily. Still, an action started in the past and is in progress up to the time of speaking. And now to the second division or main division of tense in English, which is past. Recall that we have taken the first one, which is present tense. Past tense also corresponds to the universal concept of time, that is past time. Past tense is used in English to express action that is completed in the past. It's also divided into four, as we have taken the first one, that is present tense. Past tense corresponds to the other divisions taken in the present tense. That's why we have simple past from the beginning, which is the commonest of all the other four, or the other three coming before or rather after. Past tense is generally used, or simple past tense is generally used to describe events, activities, or states in the past. Consists of only one verb. Recall our discussion of verb forms. We have ed1, that is past tense. It's is used to express certain actions like an action completed at the point in time in the past. I phoned my mother last 2 months. Can you see? The verb phoned taking what? Ed. Nigeria gained independence in 1960. Can we see? The word gain, which is our verb, taking ed. It's not necessary that we must have always regular verbs taking ed. No. Take a look at the last example in the same action, or rather in the same use. She sat for SSCE last year. Can we see? This is what taking another shape to form its past tense. It's called irregular verb. Simple past is also used to express habitual activities in the past. It rained every day in August. Maybe the speaker was talking in September. It rained every day in August. Then the second example is they went to church every Sunday. That's in the past. The boys ran to school daily. This has been his habit. He always ran to school daily. The speaker is reporting something in the past. Simple past tense is also used to express a state in the past. For instance, take a look at the two examples on the screen. The soup was tasteless. Musa became rich later. We see expressing state in the past. Then the second division of past tense is past continuous. Remember we said past tense has also 4 subtypes. The second is past continuous. This tense is used to express an action in progress or incomplete in the past. It's formed using was, were, or was and were, depending on the number of tense, plus a verb taking ing. Recall our discussion of verb forms. A verb taking ing, that is present participle. Take a look at the example. I was eating when my sister called me. He was called already, but when he was called, he was eating. You were shouting at the top of your voice when I entered the class. Probably the lecturer is referring to group of students. That's why using were. I was praying in the mosque. Can we see? The third type of past tense is called past perfect. Past perfect tense. Remember, we have taken simple past, we have also taken past continuous. The third is past perfect tense. This tense is used to show that action had completed earlier in the past before another action began. It's formed using had plus a verb in past participle form. Can you recall past participle form? ed2. For example, I had finished lecture before she arrived. Can you see the difference between have and had? Have was used when we were describing simple or present perfect tense. Because this is past, that's why we use had finished. Then we had taken lunch. I believe you can see the difference between regular and irregular verbs still in these two examples. The first example is regular verb taking its past participle using ed, while the second example is irregular form taking its past participle without using ed. The third example, the train had left the station when she came. All these examples are expressing action had completed, or rather were completed in the past before another action began. And lastly, we have past perfect continuous tense. This tense is used to express an action had been taking place, that an action had been taking place up to another action began. It's formed using had been. Had been plus a verb taking ing form. For example, she had been keeping money. I had been teaching English language. Students had been cheating in exams since before independence. The last main division of tense in English is called future tense. This simply corresponds to future time we have universally. Future tense is used to express actions that have not yet happened, that will happen in the future at some time. There are four forms of future tense as we have taken in the present tense and the past tense. The first one is called simple future, which is used to express that action will take place in near future. It's formed using will and shall. Remember our discussion in the first lecture? Will and shall are all modal auxiliaries with base form. You have will or shall plus base form of verb. Remember our discussion of base form? That is a dictionary form, or to infinitive or bare infinitive. Take a look at the examples. The super eagle will play tomorrow. Can we see? The tense is used to express something that will happen in near future. Will, indicating futurity. Play tomorrow. Verb in its base form. I shall go to Lagos next week. This is used to express a plan. Shall go. Then the last example, she will like it. Can we see? Using will and like. That is either will or shall plus a verb in its bare form. The second division of future tense is called future continuous tense. This is used to indicate that action will be in progress in the future. It's not yet happening, but it will happen in the future, and at the same time it will be in progress in the future. This tense is also formed using will or shall. That is will be or shall be plus a verb taking ing form. Remember our discussion of verb forms? Ing form of the verb. For instance, we shall be finishing this lecture by next month, God willing. You will be coming next week. Can we see? Shall be finishing, will be coming. Then lastly we have I will be driving to home. Can we see? Will be driving as will be plus a verb taking ing form. Then the third type of future tense is called future perfect tense. This tense is used to indicate that action will be finished in the future. This is formed ordinarily using will have, stroke or shall have plus past participle form of the verb. That is ed2, past participle form of the verb. Take for instance the examples given on the screen. We shall have completed this work by the end of November. Can we see? An action will be completed in the future. Boys will have eaten by night. Can we see? Will have eaten by night. And lastly we have she will have gone home by noon. Can we see? The typical marker or the typical formula of form future tense is for you to have shall have or will have, then with a verb taking ed2. In regular form, verb taking ed2 must take ed, while in irregular form, we have no fixed pattern. As for the second and third examples, eaten, gone. And the last type of future tense is called future perfect continuous tense. This tense shows an action that will have been in progress in the future. To some extent, is going to be or is becoming like a conditional. It's formed using will have been or shall have been plus a verb taking ing form. For example, Adam will have been eating his lunch by this time tomorrow. We shall have been completing this course by this time next month. Students will have been going home by 6 o'clock tomorrow. All the examples are indicating that action will have been in progress, but in the future they do not happen. They do not happen. Then the second main item to be taken in this lecture is called punctuation. We have taken the first item, which is tense. Tense, we said, is an interway between action or time of an event with the form of verb. We have taken three main types that each of them has four subtypes in there. Now we are going to move on to punctuation. Punctuation marks provide division between sentences or parts of sentences. They make reading very easy and they make comprehension easily accessible. Punctuation makes understanding of passage or writing easier. We have two broad types of punctuation marks. We have terminal punctuations and we have medial punctuation marks. Terminal punctuation marks are full stop, question mark, and exclamation mark. They indicate end of sentences. That's why they are called terminal punctuation marks. While medial punctuation marks are written, or rather, they indicate certain pause. They are being used in sentences, not at the end of sentences. And now to begin with terminal punctuation marks, which we have identified to be full stop, question mark, and exclamation mark. What is full stop? Full stop is sometimes being called a period and is used in the following ways. A full stop is used to mark the end of declarative sentence. Remember, we have taken declarative sentence under sentence function. A sentence expressing what? A statement. A declarative sentence is a statement. For example, all Bayero University students are to bring their dictionaries to class tomorrow. This is just a statement. Therefore, you have terminal punctuation mark, period, or full stop at the end of it. It is raining. So the terminal punctuation marks also should be what? A full stop. Full stop is also used at the end of imperative sentence. Imperative simply means a command. When the command is not strong enough to require an exclamation mark, we use full stop. Take a look at the sentences. Open the window, or open the windows. Go and call me a doctor. Eat as much as you like. All these are to some extent imperative sentences, but they don't require strong voice. That's why they have taken full stops. Then we have a full stop is used after an abbreviation. For instance, after Alhaji, after BM, then Muhammad, and we see. Then second example, Mr. TM Awaisu. Then Aliyu Kamal, PhD. Therefore, full stop is used to express, or rather, at the end of abbreviation mark. Apart from the names of companies, people, or government agencies, full stop is also being used to indicate initials. As we can see on the screen, we have NTA. Ordinarily, we should have full stop at the end of each N, then T, then A, full stop, then NPF, then BUK, then MTN. Then the second terminal punctuation mark is called a question mark, which is mostly used at the end of direct question or a rhetorical question. A direct question we all know require an answer, while rhetorical questions do not require an answer. Examples of direct questions are, for instance, when do you want to finish the work? And we see a question mark there. How can I get to the post office? Can we see this? Call an interrogative sentence having what? A question mark at the end of it. Do you know his name? You see also a question mark. Examples of rhetorical questions. Questions that do not require an answer. Can a man ever learn from his past mistakes? We can see that they must take what? Question mark, but they don't require an answer. We all know the answer because it's implied. How will I know that he will be angry? This is also what? The answer is also implied. Then the last punctuation mark is called an exclamation mark. We have taken the first one, which is called full stop or period. The second one, which is a question mark. The last one should be an exclamation mark. An exclamation mark is used at the end of exclamatory sentences. That is, to some extent, to express emotion. For example, come here if you dare. How wonderful. Oh, amazing. What a nice idea. Can we see? All these sentences are relatively expressing what? Emotions of the speakers. And now to the second broad division of punctuation marks, which is medial punctuation mark. Medial punctuation mark, remember in my introduction I said they appear in sentences. That is between words in sentences. They are not terminal punctuation mark. That's why they don't appear at the end of sentences. The first one to be listed is called a comma. Comma is used to express a short pause and is used between words. That is, they separate or it separate words in a sentence. For example, he has milk, sugar, biscuits, soup, and bottled water in his house. Can we see the comma using, or rather is used to what? To express, or rather to separate between words or items. She came across a short, fat, ill-tempered fellow. Can we see? A comma used to express, or rather to separate between the adjectives. Commas are also used to separate clauses in compound sentences. Can we recall where we have two or more independent clauses is called a compound sentence? How do we separate between the clauses in compound sentences? We use comma. The chairman arrived at the conference on time and everybody stood up. Can we see? On time, then you have a comma there. And everybody stood up. Although you have a conjunction marker or coordinating conjunction and, but all the same, a comma is used to separate between the two clauses. The sun was not shining, but still it was hot. We see? Demarcating between clauses. He could not accept the invitation, for he had been ill. And we see? A comma separating between clauses. The second medial punctuation mark is called a colon. While a comma is used to express, or rather to separate between items on the list, a colon is always used to introduce a list. For instance, the subjects I like are, you have a colon there, then you have English, geography, blah blah, being separated with a comma. Our point here is that you use colon to introduce a list and you use a comma to separate between items on the list. The following school prefects have been appointed. Then you have what? A colon. Then you list the items on the list. Colon can also be used for an extension of an express idea or information. For instance, we submitted our term papers to the teacher at different times as follows. Then you use colon, right? We say it as an extension of an express idea. As follows, Adamu, early in the morning. Then you have a semicolon there. The important thing is to take note of is that we introduce or we separate between an extension of idea using what? A colon. Then another function of colon is used for what? Formal introduction of quotation. We all know quotation. Quotation is someone's what? Someone's words. For example, commenting Balkisu's brilliant performance, the teacher said, then you use colon because you want to introduce what? A quotation. Then another medial punctuation mark is called a semicolon. A semicolon is written or rather is indicated using what? A comma and a full stop on top of it. A semicolon is used to separate clauses in compound sentences where you don't have coordinating conjunction. For example, a farmer planted a millet, or rather, farmer planted millet, you have semicolon. He did not plant rice. In In this sentence, we don't have what is called coordinating conjunction. Instead, we have what? A semicolon separating between the two clauses in that compound sentence. I told him to wait, then you have semicolon. I did not tell him to eat. We see? Semicolon can also be used to separate clauses in compound sentences which has but as coordinating conjunction. Yes, but as coordinating conjunction. Example, the trader has different kinds of goods, semicolon, but they are expensive. Some students do not work hard, but they want to pass their examinations. Another medial punctuation mark is called apostrophe. An apostrophe is sometimes used to indicate what? Contraction. That's where we decide to omit letter or some letters in a word. We use what? Apostrophe to indicate that a word or a letter is being what? Omitted. To indicate place where the letters are missing, we use apostrophe. For instance, I don't know. Can we see apostrophe in the word don't? Originally, it should be I do not know without what? Apostrophe. But since we use apostrophe, or rather we contract between the two words, that's the negative marker not and the word or rather the verb do, we should use apostrophe. Adam won't come. Can we see the contraction? We use apostrophe. The meeting will be held at 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. Can we see apostrophe? I'm sorry to hear that. And we see the contraction because we indicate that some letters are being missing, we should use apostrophe. Aren't you coming with me? Although it's a question, but we have contraction at the beginning. Apart from the functions of apostrophe we have identified, apostrophe is also used to indicate what? Possession. That is, using apostrophe plus s immediately after a noun or a pronoun to indicate possession. If a noun is singular, we use apostrophe before s. But if the noun is plural and it ends with s, we use apostrophe immediately after s. For instance, Muhammad's book is missing. And we see Muhammad's, the word Muhammad is singular. The boy's cap is blue. Boys here is what? Is singular, the boy. Therefore, you have apostrophe before s. That's why the verb is. Girls' shoes were well polished. Can we see? The word girls is plural. That's why apostrophe come after s. Men's bags were put on the pillow. Can we see? The word men is what? Originally plural, but do not take, or rather does not take what? S to indicate its possession, or rather it indicates plurality. Therefore, we should have what? Apostrophe after, or rather apostrophe before s. Men's bags were put on the pillow. Then dogs' tails were wagging. Then women's, can we see the same thing as men's? Because the word women do not take, or rather does not take what? S. That's why the apostrophe came immediately before s. Women's toilet is on the school premises. Also among the punctuation marks are capitals. We use capital letter for the initials or first letter of all proper nouns. Name of persons. For instance, Sani, Abdul, Ibrahim. The name of places. Calabar, Kano, Kaduna. Name of countries. Nigeria, Cameroon. Names of mountains. Mountain Kenya, Mount Everest. Names of rivers. River Benue, River Nile. The names of what? Lakes. Lake Chad, Lake Victoria. All these are used or are written using capital letters, regardless of where they appear in a particular passage. Names of oceans are also capitalized. Atlantic, Pacific, Indian. Names of continents are also capitalized wherever they appear in a particular passage. Africa, Asia, Europe, Australia. Then names of month. January to December, the names of days of the week, Monday to Friday. Therefore, all these are what capitalized wherever they appear in a particular. Also, capital letters are also used to what? To serve certain functions. For instance, we capitalize the first letter of the first word in every sentence. We all know that every sentence must begin with capital letter and end with appropriate punctuation mark. That is either exclamation mark, either a full stop, or a question mark. We also capitalize the first letter of every line of a particular poetry. We also capitalize the pronoun I, regardless of wherever it appears in a particular passage. We also capitalize the first letter of the first word of opening and closing of a letter. For instance, Dear Abdul. Can we see? Dear should be capitalized, then Abdul, because it's a proper noun, it should also be capitalized. Then the subscription, that is yours sincerely or yours faithfully. Yours should be what? Capitalized. Then by this, it's assumed that we have come to the end of this lecture. We have taken the two broad types of punctuation mark, that is terminal punctuation marks and medial punctuation marks. All in all, we have taken 4 items in the first and the second lecture of Module 2. In the first lecture, we have taken word classes and sentence types according to structure and function. In this particular lecture, which is lecture 2 of module 2, we have taken tenses and its divisions in English and punctuation marks. So far we have finished, or rather, yes, we have 2 modules, rather we have covered 2 modules. We have 5 modules left to cover the course content. Thank you for listening.